Thank you, Blair. Now to a storm that's brewing over what deflection will look like for people caught with drugs in Multnomah County. Tonight, there's growing pressure on the county to change course. More on that in a moment. Just so that we're all on the same page, let's go back for a second. When the legislature passed House Bill 4002, which recriminalized drugs this past winter, they told counties to create a deflection program. The goal was to get people found with drugs into treatment and to keep them out of the legal system. Washington and Clackamas counties are doing just that. But the Oregonian's reporting that Multnomah County is creating a plan with no consequences. Noelle Crombie broke the story earlier this week into the Oregonian. She pointed out that Multnomah County's diversion program, as it is now being created, will not require people caught with drugs to enroll in substance abuse treatment. Also, there's no limit on how often a person can opt for so-called deflection over arrest. She also reports that people will only have to check in at the drop-off center where they are taken to satisfy the requirements of deflection. We also reported last night that the man who just won the election for district attorney in Multnomah County, Nathan Vasquez, is being actively kept out of the discussion about what deflection should look like by his boss. That's the current DA who lost the election, Mike Schmidt. Why haven't you tried to get more involved?
I have. I've certainly asked that permission from my office. I have been trying to talk to various folks about this program. I want to be involved.
So the district attorney, Mike Schmidt, and Jessica Vega Peterson, they're not open to your offers?
I don't know about the chair yet. She and I have had some good conversations, and I do believe that we will have a very collaborative relationship, and I really want to work with her office. But certainly from Mike Schmidt, there has been zero cooperation in that front.
Another group not being included are police. I was able to track down the union president for Portland Police in Italy and talk to him about his position on this deflection program. Aaron Schmautz says he looks forward to being included in these policy talks, and he's concerned that the current plan does not do what state lawmakers wanted it to.
So, I mean, we have a lot of work to do. I think, you're hearing from other counties a system that I think more kind of matches the legislative intent, which is that both law enforcement has some tools to abate some of the crises we're seeing on our street, but also that when people are either taken into custody or they interact with the system, that there's a pathway that's laid out for them. Speaking to a lot of our service providers, I think they feel the same way, that the concern is that this just turns into an odd custodial version of Measure 110 without any real carrot or stick, really. My biggest concern is any kind of custodial intervention. We've got to have a real clear plan laid out as to why we're doing it, because there's clear risk when you're interacting with people who, especially with fentanyl, that something sideways happens.
In other words, consider this. Is it worth it for a police officer to take the risk of putting someone on fentanyl in the back of their car with the small but real risk that they could overdose as they're being driven to the drop-off center? Because then it's the officer's problem. And the person in the back seat, well, once they get there, all they need to do is check in at the drop-off site and then walk away to be done with Multnomah County's deflection program.
I think we all want the same thing. I think we just view the pathway very different. There are people within the treatment kind of world who view the justice system as very punitive and kind of not the right partner. But I would just encourage everyone to understand we all have a role to play. And we've got to figure out how these handoffs are going to function. Because at the end of the day, we all want, again, the same thing, which is people getting the treatment when they need it, our streets getting cleaned up, people not having to deal with a lot of these just daily issues that are manifesting themselves, and people not dying at the rate they are from fentanyl, given the poison that it is.
There's also more reaction and pressure now from the folks that threatened to repeal Measure 110 as a statewide initiative. They sent this email to the county chair, Jessica Vega Peterson, and the district attorney, Mike Schmidt, today. They wrote that they have grave concerns about the policy direction Multnomah County is choosing, arguing it lacks the careful drug treatment off-ramp envisioned under the new law, and that it will perpetuate the status quo rather than disrupting and fixing it. Also, County Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards tweeted today that commissioners are being kept in the dark. So this is secret stuff that's going on. They are not being included in these plans. I also wanted to ask the county chair directly about the policy and sent emails to her office both yesterday and again today asking for an interview. I have not heard back. Same thing with the district attorney, Mike Schmidt. But I did hear from you. And most of you are not happy with the way Multnomah County is currently planning to set up this deflection program. And several of you are especially upset that Nathan Vasquez, the district attorney who just won the election, is being kept out of the discussions.
I just watched your piece with Nathan Vasquez, and I'm outraged by the fact that Jessica Vega, whatever her name is, has any intention to follow through on just repeating the past mistakes. This is absurd. It has to stop. There has to be a carrot and a stick. We know it doesn't work in the present sense. This is just not acceptable, and our voices need to be heard. We have been victims of crime from drug addicts, personally, and this is just simply not acceptable. There has to be consequences for this type of behavior.
And Manuela wrote in to say, of course, the newly elected DA should be involved in the discussions on how to implement the program in a way that addresses the issue as was described to voters, not just paying lip service. It sounds like the present DA is a sore loser and demonstrates that by keeping the newly elected DA out of the discussion loop. And Patrick added, your story on deflection just confirms my decision to never live in Multnomah County. Between a county chair who appears to be trying to be a dictator and a DA working to subvert the will of the people and being petulant over his election loss just gives Multnomah County a dysfunctional government. Lena was also blunt and to the point.
I think Vasquez should be informed on what's going on. And I think Jessica Baker-Peterson should be out of office.
All right. Mondo wanted us to know that they support Mike Schmidt, or did until now. Although I was a believer in your interview with Mike Schmidt earlier this year, I now realize after hearing from Nathan Vasquez, I was way off base. The fact that Vasquez has been left out of the new policies going forward is totally absurd, and Mike Schmidt should be held accountable for this non-inclusive transfer of power. What in the world is the Schmidt team thinking? And then John and Pat emailed to say, it's astonishing that Multco continues to lower the bar and not represent Multco residents fairly. What will it take to get the Multco chair to acknowledge that she represents the taxpayers and this is not her personal ship to steer? Vasquez needs to be a professional nuisance and be available at every turn to help the unqualified form a workable plan. And just so you know, we really do look through all your emails and listen to all your voicemails to try and show comments from both sides. But what you've just heard and read just kind of represents the tone and direction of pretty much every message we got on this issue last night and again today. Although I will say there was one dissenter who wonders if forcing someone into drug treatment will make any difference.
Yes, my name is Elsie, and I was married to a man that was an addict and a drunk. There's no helping them until they want to get help. They will tell you whatever you want to hear to keep their bottoms out of jail or rehab or whatever. My husband was through rehab, I think 7 times in 17 years. And it just doesn't work.
And I'm sure that we've not heard the last of this. Drug possession becomes a crime again in Oregon on September 1st. That's when the deflection program has to be ready. We will keep an eye on it between now and then. And in the meantime, if you did not already send us your thoughts, now's the time. We'll take them through email. You could send them to thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. I look forward to hearing from you.